For years I thought there was something genuinely wrong with me. Not once, but 3 separate times. So the first time I was around 24. I'd recently lost my dad, started a new job in car sales, and just kept pushing and pushing as far as I could go. At first I thought I was coping, but then I'd find myself sat in cars for hours, not wanting to speak to anybody, losing interest in the things I'd normally enjoy. I was exhausted, not sleepy, just exhausted. My body just felt really heavy. Getting out of bed felt difficult. I stopped enjoying things, I stopped doing things. People thought I was depressed, and to be honest, I understand why. Now I'd just lost my dad, probably not dealt with that properly, but I just knew something didn't fit, didn't feel sad, I just felt different. Now after a few weeks this just passed and my life just carried on as normal for a while. I just put it down to a blip or something. But then it happened again, about 5 years later. This time, looking good from the outside, I'd settled down with a bird, I was earning good money, and things should have been great. But I had just recently started a job at a car dealership, and me and the manager kept having a couple of run-ins. And this time it crept up a bit slowly than before, but I noticed the tiredness, the confusion and the exhaustion. Slipping back into my old ways, disappearing for hours. Only this time it was worse. I completely lost the ability to do anything. Now this time I seeked medical help, and after a very thorough 5-minute appointment with the doctor, he gave me some pills. Depressed, he reckons. So the advice and the prescription the doctor had given me just made me feel so much worse. And after a while I thought, you know what, I've tried getting the help route and just was like, I'm just going to deal with it. And after months of lying in bed, not being able to do anything, looking for reasons why I felt this way, things that were stressing me out and fixing them one by one, I felt a bit better again. See, I didn't feel depressed, I didn't feel sad, I just felt different. The only way I could describe this is like somebody had unplugged me from the wall, like completely drained. Now life did go back to normal again for a couple of years, but signs of poor mental health was still showing. Now the third and final time this happened was at the age of 34, around 2 years ago now. And if the second time this happened I was looking good, probably looked even better at this point. I had the nice things, a missus, a house, a child. I even had the car outside that I've always wanted. I was now working in a corporate sales role, business to business, working from home 4 days a week, and just having to go to the office 1 day a week. I noticed signs I was maybe slipping back into having one of these episodes again. This time it just burned slower and slower and slower, and it took months almost to get to the point where I'm like, yeah, it's happening. I suppose some of the examples I could give of this, I had to work 1 day a week, and it was about an hour and a half away on a train. For 2 days before that office day, I would stress myself out so much about it that I would feel physically sick and couldn't sleep. Funnily enough, the day I was actually at the office and in the office, I was great, I was on top form, and nobody would have ever guessed what was going on in here. Now by the time I got home, I'd feel completely wiped out. And the fact I'd not seen my son for 14 hours on that day, and I come in, I couldn't even look him in the eye. I just knew, again, something wasn't right. Not being able to look your son in the eye, even though you really want to, is one of the hardest things I've ever felt in life. And it was because I just had nothing left. Again, the heaviness, the exhaustion, and just feeling like I'm completely broken. I knew what was coming, and this time I reached out to my boss and I says, I don't know how to explain this to you, but I cannot work. How do I explain to somebody I'm physically able to work, but not able to work? It was so hard to do. But I knew what was coming, I knew what I was in, and I knew what I had to do. So yet again, I reached out for medical help, and yet again, they tried giving me the antidepressants after a 5-minute conversation. This time though, I pushed back and says no, and then the research started, obsessive research. Eventually, I landed on something which would change my life forever, ADHD. Like, not the person bouncing off the walls, like the adult version, the burnout, the overwhelm, the exhaustion. And it turns out what I was doing every day in the office was something called masking. And for the first time in my life, things just started making sense. Now I'm not saying every difficult period in my life was ADHD burnout, but what I am saying is when I look back at these periods now, I just knew at the time it wasn't depression and I didn't know what to do. What I see now looking back is somebody trying to force his brain into situations his brain was just never dealt to deal with. If I could go back and tell that person one thing, don't ignore what your own instincts are telling you, because for years I thought I was broken. It turns out I just didn't understand myself yet. Now if any of this sounds familiar, stick around, because this is just the start of the story.